Live. All right then. Good evening, everybody. It is Saturday, August 23rd, and we are coming to you live with the first official podcast of And Another Thing with Dave. Trying to bring attention to rarely talked about or undercovered topics. Things that the mainstream media just kind of stays away from that I think we need to really talk about. So today, banking, part one. The Federal Reserve and fractional reserve banking. So let's talk about the Federal Reserve. Established in our country in 1913, the Federal Reserve prints our money, decides how much money to print, prints it, decides the interest rate and the rate of inflation. They are a private, for-profit company that answers to nobody, has never been audited, and loans our government our money. So let me just say this again. A private for-profit company. So when our government needs money, they ask the Fed for a loan. The Fed prints that money. Actually, they don't. They do a few keystrokes, transfer some digits, some bytes, and then that money is transferred and a debt is created. Now our government owes the Federal Reserve X amount of dollars. That's where our that's where our income tax goes, is to pay the interest on the debt that the Federal Reserve carries. Pretty crazy, right? So you do away with the Federal Reserve, all of a sudden, all of our income tax money generated every year is a surplus that could be put into our actual government instead of going to this for-profit corporation. Okay, so that's the first thing that nobody knows, is the Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express. It's not a federal entity. That name is meant to fleece you. It's a smokescreen. The next thing we want to talk about is fractional reserve banking. So established long, long ago and supported and promoted by the Fed, fractional reserve banking maintains that a bank can loan out 90% more money than it actually has in reserves. So if a bank has 10,000, it can loan 100,000. So do you see where this? You see where this is a problem? It creates the house of cards. It creates the potential for a run on the banks and a complete crash of our financial system. They should never be able to loan any more money than they have right there, able to give back to their investors. I mean, what happened to banking? It used to be that they held your money and made money off of it, invested it in only certain things that was very specific what they could invest in, and then made a little return on that. Now it's just gotten ridiculous, so out of hand, with derivatives and futures and hedge funds and all these different created entities that have nothing to do with an actual tangible thing. It's all just keystrokes creating money out of ideas. It's great to create money from a book that came from ideas, an actual tangible item. But hedge funds? Are you kidding me? So you can bet that a stock is going to go down and that will pay off? How? There's no money generated there. There's a loss of money generated there if a stock goes down. So how can there be a profit for some? It's a scam. So anyway, the Fed is a for-profit corporation, prints the money to loan to our government. Keyword loan to our government. Why do we need somebody to do that? Why do we want somebody to be in charge of our monetary system? What is it? How does it benefit the government or the people at all? Well, guess what? It doesn't. And every president that has ever tried to put an end to the Fed, it's been done successfully twice, almost a third time with Kennedy, but guess what? First time, Andrew Jackson didn't fare so well. Second time was with Lincoln. That didn't work out so well for him either. Lincoln initiated the greenbacks. Boom. Fed did not like that. And then Kennedy was going to end the Fed as well. Boom. Not so good there. And then Nixon took a step for the Fed, took it even one step further for the Fed, and ended the gold standard. That was a big one. So in the 70s, the gold standard ended, meaning our money was no longer tied to representing a certain amount of gold and the value that that gold holds. Now it is a note legal in tender to pay debt. It's monopoly money. It's based on nothing now. So the Fed operates in almost every country in the world, except for about 5. Guess which ones those are. They fund both sides of every war, making profit from both sides. And those 5 countries that are left, well, you keep hearing about them in the news. We want to invade them. Syria, Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia. Funny how those have been our enemies, and they just keep popping up for some reason, huh? Because they're the only people that haven't bowed to the king. So, some interesting and scary stuff going on here. There's a few things you can do. There's one big way. Well, knowledge is power. So the first thing is to educate yourself. And the second thing is to take little baby steps. Like what I did is I took my money, first and foremost, I took my money out of a big bank, and I went to a local regional bank. That was really easy to find, and then once I was more settled, I was in a transitory place at that time. Once I was more settled, I have since taken my money from that local regional bank and gone with a local credit union, very local, that only operates in my county. So credit unions are owned and operated. They're owned by the members of the credit union. So it's not a corporation, and the more local your bank or credit union is, the more local your money is staying. And I can't stress how important this is. They just had a little factoid listed at my credit union, as a matter of fact, saying that for every $100 you spend locally, it actually generates $120 for the local community. Because not only are you spending it at the local grocery store or whatever, but then they deposit it into the local bank. That local bank is spending, blah, 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 and it trickles down like that. As soon as you go shopping at Walmart or something like that, the money is sucked out of the local economy, and that only generates, every $100 there generates something like $90, or it might have even been worse, but it was definitely 90 or less. So pretty interesting stuff there. So one of the main things you can do is invest in your community. Take your money out of these giant structures that A, helped cause the financial collapse, that B, profited from the bailout, and that C, should be held criminally accountable because they didn't use any of that bailout money to then put back into the economy. As a matter of fact, Bank of America was just found guilty and has to pay out $16.5 billion for withholding money that was given to them during the bailout period. They got $62 billion, and they didn't invest a dime of it in the U.S. They claimed that their logic was they were going to get a better return if they invested it overseas. They invested in Dubai. But that wasn't what that money was for. It was to create vigor, to stimulate our local economy. Well, $62 billion and just... So now they're fined $16.5 billion. Like, once again, a little slap on the wrist. But they already made their money. They already took that money, profited, invested it, profited off of it, laughed all the way to the bank, and now they're just, paying us a little percentage off the top. So first and foremost, I got to say, just take your money out of the big banks. Go with a credit union. Just go on Google and Google credit union in your local area, credit union, and then comma in your city. You'll get a local one. Go as local as you can. Try to go local in your county, if you can. You can still use ATMs, nationwide. You still have all the same options. You get a debit card, all like that. It's, all the same conveniences. You're just not giving your money to a giant soul-sucking, vampiristic corporation. That's all I can say. So that, and there's one other little way that you can get back at these big banks. Every time you get a credit card application in the mail, instead of just throwing that thing away or recycling it, open that sucker up. There's a return addressed envelope in there that's prepaid. So stuff that thing full of junk mail and mail it back to these bastards. If all of us did that, imagine if 30 million people did that. It's about $1.50 per envelope if it's packed full. And if you put something rigid in there, like say a roofing shingle, a piece of wood, something like that, if there's something rigid in the envelope, it's an extra 75 cents. So not only is it done by weight, but by rigidity. So make sure there's something solid and rigid in there, and make sure that sucker is as full as you can get it, and still close that envelope. Mail it back to the banks. You might be able to get cost them $2 for that envelope. Now imagine if 30 million people did that to Bank of America, and it cost them $2 each. That's $60 million. That would hit them where it hurts. So simple steps like this, and we can change the game and get it back to a nation of and for the people, instead of and for these vampiristic, profit-driven, soul-sucking corporations that know no bounds. I mean, I'm all for making profit. I'm all for making profit, and I don't want somebody to tell me how much profit I can make, but I don't want it to be at the detriment of somebody else. And I damn sure don't want social programs to be cut and then have corporations be given corporate welfare to level that playing field. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I don't know. Anyway, chime in. I'm rambling. That's enough for this podcast. So I'm gonna include some links with some videos on the Fed. Zeitgeist, the addendum, is a great one. Highly recommend watching that. That's what started my journey down the rabbit hole. So anyway, peace and prosperity to all.